Tonight, Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund, a government agency, flouts President Buhari's COVID-19 safety law, conducts examination in an overcrowded center. In spite of the extension of deadline for national identity number registration, prospective enrollees continue to besiege the NIMC registration center in Abuja. Party members scamper for safety as APC registration exercise turns violent in Kwara State, with chairs flying around. And Myanmar police file charges against elected civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi following Monday's military coup. Plus, business, sports, and later international news from our studios in London.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's GDP expected to rise as National Bureau of Statistics announces plan to rebase the country's economy to 2018-2019 period.
On sports news tonight, Eyimba International FC of Aba moved top of the Nigeria Professional Football League for the first time this season after 8 games.
And from Abuja, Taraba State Governor Darius Ishaku talks tough, asks federal governments to grant Nigerians license to carry guns to fight bandits and kidnappers.
President Muhammadu Buhari's newly signed law on the enforcement of the COVID-19 guidelines was again put to the test today after the Federal Capital Territory Enforcement Task Force stopped staff of the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund from writing their promotion examination. The NSITF staff gathered at the M&M Event Center, adjacent the Radio House venue for the promotion examination, with disregard for the protocols. The enforcement of the president's directive forced 2 management staff of the agency to flee the scene, leaving their vehicles behind and evading arrest.
This hall at this event center should seat less than 500 persons. However, some staff of the NSITF, who informed the FCT Enforcement Task Force on COVID-19 on condition of anonymity, say their management sandwiched over 1,000 of them from across the country to sit for their promotional exams in this hall. According to government officials, they became scared for their lives, taking into cognizance the COVID-19 pandemic and non-adherence to the protocols. When the Enforcement Task Force arrives, officials of the NSITF resist the order to vacate the premises.
We can't work on hearsay, sir. If the PTF gave you an approval, then the PTF should have communicated us.
After about 2 hours, they comply.
Who organize it will have to come with us. You have to come with us. Please, can we tell everybody to leave?
However, 2 management staff flee the scene, leaving their cars behind. Their vehicles are towed by the Abuja vehicle inspection officers.
So they go raise the phone now, probably, they raise the phone. We are a little bit more careful, knowing that the NSITF is a respected government organization and they should do what is needful. This early morning, we got so much complaint. Some persons, not staff, some persons came to the Eagle Square where we were sitting to come and lodge some complaints with so many pictures and videos of overcrowdedness. They claimed that they had permission. And we told them, okay, if you got permission, please show us the permission. They couldn't provide any permission.
Meanwhile, at the mobile court set up for the enforcement of the COVID-19 safety protocols, a chief magistrate, Mrs. Idayat Akoni, fines officials of Wuse Market, UTC, and MURG shopping mall 50,000 naira each for violating the COVID-19 protocols.
We saw that they were largely prepared for the compliance. But what we also tell them going forward is the need for them to sustain the compliance and sustain the obedience to the COVID-19 presidential order that was assented to.
They promised to adhere to the safety protocols going forward.
We wrote an undertaking to comply with the COVID-19 protocol. And we believe with what we have just done, we'll make sure that we educate our people.
The market and shopping malls are unsealed by the officials. The jubilant traders happily go into their shops after 2 days of closure. For some Nigerians, the sanction on these facilities would serve as a deterrent to others if they violate the presidential COVID-19 protocols.
In other news, the extension of the deadline to link the national identification number to the SIM cards may have come as cheery news to many prospective enrollees, but that has not stopped the crowd that continues to gather at registration centers in the nation's capital, Abuja. Some of them are frustrated at the delay in the process, noting that the April 6th deadline set by the government is still not realistic.
The crowd at the main enrollment and registration center in the nation's capital is not abating. This is in spite of the 8 weeks extension of the linkage of the national identification number to the subscribers' identification module cards.
The extension or no extension doesn't change anything. The crowd here is mad. You are seeing it yourself. And it is always like this every day. They barely attend to everybody.
These a few months or few weeks they are given is not enough. Given the fact that the Nigerians are over 200 million, before you can capture them, we're supposed to have enough time frame, like 6 months, 1 year.
Anybody will come here first, you will first do before others.
Every time an official emerges from the center, the crowd surged forward. The whole process apparently is frustrating for the intending enrollees.
Even on Tuesday that I came here to write my name very early by 5 o'clock, I was meeting 181 numbers. So that is it. I've been trying so much and I want to travel. Because of this, it has been keeping me. And my people, they are waiting for me to come and start to work.
The situation is further worsened for some that have already registered but are yet to be issued the national identification number.
2 weeks ago, I came to this place for my name registration. But fortunately, I registered the thing that day. But up to now, I cannot get my print out. And that's the current challenge that I'm facing now. And every day by day, I will take permission from my working place to this place. And it's as if I'm playing the scam.
When we come in the morning, they will write names. And nothing will happen. We will go for the day. Today we came now. As people are seeing, we have just finished writing the names. And yet they now say we should come back on Friday just to print out.
Charles Melee is one of such persons. He has completed his registration but had to travel back to Abuja from Anambra to rectify the spelling on his name.
With evidence that I've done the correction, they still have to tell me that their system has not updated. They are still doing an update in their system there. Now, immigration cannot be able to offer me a passport because my name has not been updated there to them.
According to officials of the National Identity Management Commission, this center enrolls an average of 350 persons per day. The commission is hoping to increase the registration centers to over 1,000.
With the newly signed coronavirus protection regulation law, the use of face masks in public places has become mandatory. Offices and places of worship are also expected to, among other things, keep physical distancing, while enforcement agencies lagging in their responsibility may even face sanctions. While these directives have raised the level of enforcement and compliance in a few states, including Lagos and the Federal Capital Territory, the situation is different in many states across the country. Our next report takes a look at the level of enforcement and compliance in some states in the northern part of the country.
The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has repeatedly raised concerns about the rising number of confirmed cases of the virus in the last 2 months, and recommendations from the task force made President Buhari sign the 2021 Coronavirus Disease Health Protection Regulation last month.
The regulations compel the Nigerian Police Force, the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, and the Immigration Service to enforce the safety protocols across the country. While the signed document has raised the level of enforcement and compliance in Abuja and a few other states, the situation is a far cry in other states like Kogi, Yobe, and Zamfara states.
Kogi State don't believe that there is COVID-19 because people move free. As you can see everybody moving free because they don't believe in Kogi State. We don't have COVID-19. That is the reason why you see everybody move free.
Actually, it's not that I'm not wearing mask. I used to wear it, but only on specific functions. Like if I'm going on public functions, I wear it. But on a normal routine, I don't much bother on wearing it.
That's why we are here. In Kogi State, for instance, residents engage in their daily activities without regard for the safety protocols, and there is no enforcement by the security agencies. The few people using face masks on the street are mainly visitors from other states.
Everybody is told to put his or her face mask, but I want to honestly tell you that in Kogi State here it's optional. You cannot go to Abuja now. The law has empowered the police there to arrest, and everybody is putting it there. In Lagos, where I came from, it's still the same there.
The situation is not too different in Jigawa, Zamfara, and Yobe states. From the major motor parks to the markets, adherence to the safety protocols is zero, and enforcement does not exist here.
For those that they were not using the face masks, individual differences. And as Nigerians at large, some of the people did not believe in the disease, this COVID-19.
Part 5 of the 2021 Coronavirus Disease Health Protection Regulations puts the responsibility of enforcement squarely on the police force, the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, and the Immigration Service. Nigeria recorded over 1,600 new cases of COVID-19 in the last 24 hours alone, thereby raising the need for more stringent enforcement of the safety protocols in order to cut down on the number of new infections.
Let's turn our attention now to politics. The planned stakeholders meeting, scheduled to discuss the modalities for the commencement of the registration and revalidation of members of the All Progressives Congress in Kwara State, was today disrupted following disagreements by factions. While a factional state chairman was allegedly rough-handled, the vehicle of the woman leader was vandalized. Inside the hall, chairs were thrown at members even before the meeting started.
Delegates of the APC Registration Committee arrive in the state of harmony. That is the slogan for which Kwara State is known. The team here is to conduct the registration and revalidation exercise. Materials are on the ground and all look set. But the situation on the ground says otherwise. Many members of the APC are aggrieved. Before the registration starts, the National Revalidation Committee calls for a stakeholders meeting. But the meeting has hardly gone underway before tempers began to flare. The division in the Kwara APC is vivid here, and before you know it, violence erupts. Cheers turned into darts, hurled at whoever was in sight, and the outcome, the Kwara APC chairman gives account.
Altogether, I think we should have. I think about 10 people were wounded. They sustained various forms of injuries.
The party's women leader in the state was also caught in a brawl. She recounts her ordeal, accusing fingers are already being pointed.
I say domestic to the governor. They used to call him SOJ. And I say political, I say women empowerment. That's Yalamule. They were the one that instructed the boys to go and destruct my car.
Although efforts to get a direct reaction from the governor's side proves impossible, but Governor Abdulrahman Abdulrazak flags off membership registration and revalidation exercise in the state at his Idigba county home in Adewale ward of Ilorin West and is asking for peace.
Political parties, there are people with divergent opinions. We would not say because somebody has a different opinion, he should not be allowed to register. No, everybody will register, but must be allowed to register. In peace, this should not be a violent exercise. Everybody will be allowed to register.
The APC registration and revalidation exercise in Kwara State may have gotten off on a bad footing. The crisis is rocking the party which is at the helm of affairs in the state. We have more than acquiring members to deal with in the coming days. Shonwa Kimale, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, troops kill 3 bandits in Dutsima local government area of Katsina State, recover several arms and ammunition. Stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us to watch the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos, a reminder of our top stories. Nigeria's Social Insurance Trust Fund, a government agency, flouts President Buhari's COVID-19 safety law, conducts examination in an overcrowded center. In spite of the extension of deadline for national identity number registration, prospective enrollees continue to besiege the NIMC registration center in Abuja. Party members scamper for safety as APC registration exercise turns violent in Kwara State, with chairs flying around. And Myanmar police filed charges against elected civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi following Monday's military coup. The former interim national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Chief Bisi Akande, has described the ongoing APC registration and revalidation exercises efforts in futility. He wants the present APC Caretaker Executive Committee to resist all temptations of sit-tight syndrome, which usually characterizes many hand-picked authorities in most underdeveloped countries of the world. Chief Akande made this statement during the flag-off of the APC party registration and revalidation of the party members of the South-West regions at his hometown in Osun State.
Normal circumstances, a caretaker executive committee for a political party is an abnormality. If not carefully controlled and expeditiously managed, most aberrant authorities end up in contempt and disgrace. For this reason, I want to urge the present APC Caretaker Executive Committee to resist all temptations of sit-tight syndromes that usually characterize most hand-picked authorities in most undeveloped countries of the world. The second is to say that no population census is repeated within less than a decade of, and that voters are not registered at every election. Within this context, I see the present APC membership registration within less than a decade after the original register as an indefensible aberration, leading to certain ugly perceptions. The second major perception is that APC leadership might be wasteful and unappreciative of the proper use of money in a kind of scanty economy in which Nigeria now finds itself.
Security now. Police authorities in Katsina State say they have shot dead at least 3 suspected armed bandits terrorizing Dutsima local government area of the state. The State Commissioner of Police, Sanusi Buba, explains that the area commander of Dutsima, Aminu Umar, and his team responded to distress call that bandits numbering over 50, riding on motorbikes, shooting sporadically with AK-47 rifles, attacked Ungua, Bera, and Tasha Mangoro villages.
So many of the bandits actually express their desire to lay their arms, surrender their arms, and embrace peace. And that we are determined to ensure that those that lay down their arms and want to embrace peace, we are going to work with them to ensure there is peace and tranquility in our state and beyond. But the recalcitrant ones who refused to surrender and are determined to continue with these dastardly acts, we will continue to pursue them wherever they are until we bring them down to justice or get them neutralized as the case may be.
Terry Kumi joins us now with more news from our Abuja studio. Hi, Terry.
Well, hello, Amarachi. Welcome to the nation's capital. Let's stick with security. Governor Darius Ishaku of Taraba State has asked the federal government to allow all citizens own licensed guns to protect themselves. Governor Ishaku notes that security in Nigeria has gone to its lowest ebb and its architecture reduced to rubbles and requires a reawakening. He was speaking when the 15 local government chairmen of the state paid him a condolence visit after the burial of one of them who was kidnapped and subsequently killed by gunmen. The governor, who sympathized with the families of those who lost their lives to insecurity, notes that Nigerians are living in dangerous and unpredictable times, which calls for vigilance.
If one thing you do every day is not working correctly, then you should go and find advice from somebody to tell you how you will do it differently to get it correct. You can't keep doing the same wrong thing over and over. And if we cannot be able to provide security for our citizens, then allow all the citizens to buy AK-47. If everybody is licensed with AK-47, I swear nobody will come to your house. Or if he comes, then it depends on who is faster. But the situation where we are all gagged with one particular security system that has been unable to work, and we are told to sit down and be counting the day our turn will come, I don't agree with it.
Meanwhile, Governor Samuel Otom of Benue State says he is worried about the security situation in the country, and he is appealing to President Muhammadu Buhari to act fast before it escalates. He also commends the nationwide outcry against the atrocities committed by killer herdsmen, ranging from kidnapping, rape, banditry, among others. He mentioned this when he resumed office after he tested negative to COVID-19.
This country belongs to all of us. And the federal government, the presidency, must act fast because time is going. From north, west, northeast, north central, southwest, southeast, south, there is general insecurity. And this is being propelled by herdsmen. I want to repeat again, I have made it a petition to the presidency and to all security agencies before, that if they want peace, Mayor Tiala must be arrested. These are people who have owned up. They have taken responsibility that they have killed, they maim, they rape, and do all sorts of atrocities. And yet their leadership is in Abuja, and nobody is confronting them. And until these people are arrested, when I talk, I was being castigated. I was being vilified. Nothing bad that was not said against me. I am this and that. But the reality is here. It is not just happening to Benue State today. It is happening to the entire country. Why is the federal government being silent about this Fulani men? When will the federal government come out and criticize and arrest herdsmen carrying AK-47? When are they going to do that?
From Benue to Oyo State, where Governor Makinde has been speaking on efforts to clamp down on kidnappers and criminals in the state. Governor Makinde was speaking to members of different communities in areas affected by farmers' herders crisis.
It's over a week since the crisis between the Gongon youths and Fulani herdsmen in Ibarakpa happened. Governor Sheyi Makinde and his team visited some of the hotspots in the locality for 2 days.
I also feel the pain. I feel your pain.
First, a meeting with the traditional rulers, farmers and youth representatives in the area, and then a stopover at Idere and Igongon in Ibarakpa land, after which the governor commiserates with some of the victims.
We're supporting them with logistics now. We brought 4 additional operational vehicles for them. We'll support them with more logistics as time goes on. But they are here on ground. And then in the morning you can watch out. I'm sure you'll see them.
He corrects the insinuation that he took a particular position during the crises. He added that the failure of communication, intelligence gathering, and other factors led to the escalation of the crises in the area.
I am quite glad that some of the things that the government, some of the initiatives that the government is trying to put in place to stem insecurity, like ensuring that our identity management program, takes off as quickly as possible. The Peace and Security Committee that is all-encompassing, and also for political office holders to know that when they see something, they have to say something.
The residents have a few demands from the government as they claim they have been facing various challenges in the hands of herdsmen since 2008, which has escalated to rape, kidnapping and murder. Apart from the deployment of 200 additional Amotekun Corps to Ibarakpa land, Governor Makinde added that he has also instructed the agency and other security apparatus to step up an intelligence gathering while warning residents not to stigmatize any particular ethnic group.
When the news at 10 returns, Nigeria's GDP expected to rise as National Bureau of Statistics announces plan to rebase the country's economy. That's on Business News. Join us again.
Welcome back. The Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai is urging state governors to exercise firm action against anarchy, promote rule of law and rights of citizens to pursue their legitimate livelihoods and liberty. The governor's comments come in the wake of what he calls avoidable rhetoric, frenzied ethnic profiling and unlawful eviction of citizens from their places of domicile in the southern part of the country. He made reference to some viral videos showing destruction of property belonging to some ethnic groups and calls on all Nigerians in the state to respect law and order and the rights of all citizens to live in peace and security wherever they reside or work.
I call on all Nigerians living in our state to respect law and order and the rights of all citizens to live in peace and security wherever they reside or work. I appeal to my colleagues governing other states in our country to make similar statements and disavow these attacks and massacres. We must avoid anarchy and vigorously promote the rule of law and the right of all citizens to life, liberty and livelihoods wherever they choose to reside. Elected and appointed leaders across the country must act on their constitutional obligations to protect all citizens, uphold order, and contribute to a climate for peaceful resolution of all issues. In Kaduna State, we are learning from decades of unfortunate and needless experiences. We have faced the tragic manifestations of the indigenous settler divide. This has been compounded by criminal activities that often have fatal consequences. But the victims of criminal actions like banditry and kidnapping in our state cut across all ethnic and religious groups. We have resisted the attempt to tar all members of any ethnic group for the criminal actions of some of their members.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, is asking Nigerians to be fair in judging the ruling All Progressives Congress and not let mistakes made by the party overshadow the good work done since it came into office. Mr. Gbajabiamila also spoke on the need for the country to have intense dialogue on the security situation in the country, especially with the farmer-herder crisis. He was speaking to State House correspondents after a private meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari today.
If you can show me an alternative with cogent reasons why, then we can begin to talk. But right now, there is no alternative. APC has done a lot, and I want us to be very objective. The party has done so much, but unfortunately, in life, that's just the way it is. If you do 100 good things, and one thing just is not quite right yet, particularly something maybe you met on ground, is not quite right yet, it has a tendency of muddling the waters and discrediting the 100 good things that you've done. And that's the situation we find ourselves. Well, we'll continue to encourage the public. We'll continue to educate the public on the things that APC has done. Now, APC never enjoyed really propagating itself. We thought our work would speak for us. But for me, I've since learned that no, you need to propagate yourself. Because a lot of the things, when I sit down with people, the biggest critics of government, and there will always be critics in any government, when I sit down with them and say, but you know what, the party did this, the party did this, the party did this, they're all in shock. They're all in shock. So I think it's time we begin to market some of the achievements of the party and not let the one or two little, they may be fundamental, I quite agree, but not let those things overshadow the good things that we've done.
In other news, the Federal Executive Council has approved a memo from the Ministry of Education for the establishment of 20 new private universities across the country, bringing the total number of private universities in the country to 99. The 20 new private universities are to be given provisional licenses to run for 3 years, while the ministry is to monitor and evaluate their growth. The approval is part of decisions reached at the end of the 32nd Federal Executive Council meeting, presided over by the President today. Members of the Council also observed a minute's silence in honor of two former ministers, Alhaji Alpha Wali and Prince Tony Momo, who died recently. Those physically in attendance were the Vice President, Yemi Oshibajo, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, Chief of Staff to the President, Ibrahim Gambari, and the National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Munguno, as well as 7 ministers. Business News is next. Here's Anne Mawudu.
Thanks a lot, Amarachi. Hello and welcome to Business News. Let's begin with Nigeria's gross domestic product. It is expected to rise in the coming months as the National Bureau of Statistics announces plans to rebase the country's economy to 2018 and 2019 period. The NBS made this known today in a document on the National Business Sample Survey across the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory, and is being carried out in collaboration with the World Bank. The new plan by the NBS is expected to provide sectoral data at national and state levels using its adopted price benchmark for necessary intervention, which will help increase the real GDP and overall size of Africa's biggest economy. Nigeria's economy rose from $397.19 billion in the year 2018 to $448.12 billion as of 2019, according to the World Bank's data. Meanwhile, the price of Brent has climbed above $58 per barrel today after climbing more than 2% after government data showed U.S. crude stockpiles fell to their lowest level since March, while OPEC Plus maintained its supply cut agreement. Report released today by the Energy Information Administration shows that U.S. crude oil stockpiles fell last week to 475.7 million barrels, and that's its lowest level since March. Brent crude futures rose 1.74% to $58.46 a barrel, and that's after reaching $58.94 a barrel, its highest since last February. While its contemporary, that's the U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude, settled 1.7% higher at $55.69 a barrel after hitting a high of $56.33 a barrel in the session earlier today, its highest level since January 2020. The annual meeting of the World Economic Forum, which was postponed to May this year and moved from Switzerland to Singapore, is now expected to hold between August the 17th and the 20th. Organizers of this summit have attributed the fresh postponement to pandemic-related challenges, while it also reflects the international challenges in containing the virus. The WEF explains that the 2021 meeting will be the first global leadership summit to address the challenges of recovering from the pandemic and laying the basis for more inclusive and sustainable world. The annual gathering of the world's political, economic and business elites was traditionally held in January in the village of Davos. The domestic stock market has closed negative for a third consecutive day this week, with the NSE's all-share index just a step back to the 41,000 lower level. Ladi Williams has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Yeah, we're still seeing the bear show itself because investors are still trying to book some profit from gains made last week. However, the rate of profit taking is beginning to taper. Look at the all-share index closed negative at 0.10%, but that's far below what we've seen in the last two trading sessions. The current rise in yield at the bond market is actually creating some concerns whether it will be a long-term occurrence. So investors are really weighing the situation to see if they'll begin to scale back their investment in the equities market and switch to the fixed income market, but that's yet to be determined. For now, expectations with dividend payout is still driving investor sentiment towards the equities. Activity still looks good. Over 504 million shares valued at about 5.3 billion naira was traded in 5,887 deals. Hopefully, with the modulation we've seen now, we might likely see the arrow turn to the green on Thursday. But since this market can be unpredictable, let's just keep our fingers crossed. It's back to you.
The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Amarachi.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial star 894 hash now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Anne. Police operatives in Edo State are combing a forest along the Benin bypass in search of the killers of a U.S.-based Nigerian, Dennis Abuda, who was killed on Saturday by his abductors. The State Commissioner of Police, Philip Ogbadu, says Mr. Abuda was abducted alongside other members of his family who were traveling with him to Lagos to catch a flight to the United States. He was reportedly shot by his abductors after he slumped while being forced to march into the forest. Another batch of stranded Nigerians has returned to the country from Saudi Arabia. A social media post by the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission says the batch, which had a total of 425 citizens, arrived at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja today. It's a third batch of Nigerians that has returned to the country within a week. Last Thursday, a total of 384 Nigerians returned from the Middle East Kingdom, and the day after that, another batch numbering over 400 returned to the country. NEDCOM says they will join other returnees that arrived earlier and are currently undergoing quarantine at the Federal Capital Territory Hajj camp for 14 days. Still ahead on the news at 10, Myanmar police filed charges against elected civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi following Monday's military coup. And more from a London studio and around the world in 5. Stay with us. Welcome back. Myanmar police have filed several charges against the country's elected civilian leader, Aung San Suu Kyi. The charges include breaching import and export laws and possession of unlawful communication devices. Deposed President Win Myint has also been charged with violating rules banning gatherings during the COVID-19 pandemic. He, just like Suu Kyi, has remained in custody for 2 weeks. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Myanmar's police have charged deposed leader Aung San Suu Kyi with breaching the country's import and export laws. Ms. Suu Kyi has been remanded in custody until February the 15th. Her whereabouts is still unclear, but it has been reported that she is being held at her residence in the capital Nay-Pyi-Taw. The coup led by Armed Forces Chief has seen the formation of an 11-member junta, which is ruling under a year-long state of emergency. Russian police have detained more than 1,400 people at protests in support of opposition leader Alexei Navalny. The Kremlin critic has been jailed for 3.5 years for violating the conditions of a suspended sentence. Mr. Navalny was detained 2 weeks ago upon his return to Moscow from Berlin, where he spent several months recovering from poisoning with the nerve agent Novichok. The court has ruled that while he was in Germany, he violated probation terms from a 2014 case. Mario Draghi, the former European Central Bank chief, has accepted the mandate to form a new government and lead Italy through the coronavirus pandemic.
Che rispondo positivamente all'appello del Presidente della Repubblica.
President Sergio Mattarella has asked Mr. Draghi to put together a high-profile administration that hopefully will win the backing of a broad sweep of parties in the fractured parliament. The move comes after talks aimed at salvaging Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte's coalition collapsed. Prosecutors say Jibril Massaquoi from Sierra Leone, who was part of the rebel group that fought in Liberia from 1999 to 2003, is responsible for killing civilians and soldiers who had just been disarmed and rape and recruiting of child soldiers. Prosecutors have demanded a life sentence, which in Finland tends to mean 14 years imprisonment. SpaceX Starship prototype rocket has exploded on landing after an experimental launch from Boca Chica in Texas. The uncrewed vehicle, codenamed SN9, climbed successfully to 6 miles above the Texas Gulf Coast, but once again failed to pull off the landing as the flight ended in an explosive impact with the ground.
Preparing to restart 2 engines, flip the vehicle vertical, then transition to 1 engine for the landing burn.
The 50-meter tall Starship is a concept for future space transportation, as the company has said that once fully developed, the vehicle will be capable of taking people to the moon and to Mars. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has led a national clap for Captain Sir Tom Moore and health workers. The House of Commons also held a 1-minute silence in memory of Captain Sir Tom Moore and those who have lost their lives as a result of the pandemic. Tom Moore, who raised almost £33 million for NHS charities by walking laps of his garden last spring, died in hospital aged 100 on Tuesday after contracting the coronavirus.
Captain Sir Tom Moore was a hero in the truest sense of the word. In the dark days of the Second World War, he fought for freedom, and in the face of this country's deepest post-war crisis, he united us all.
And finally, a famous weather-predicting animal has forecast another 6 weeks of winter on Groundhog Day 2021.
Okay. Oh, you look beautiful today. All right.
The marmot, named Phil, has seen his shadow, and as legend holds, that means 6 additional weeks of heavy coats and cold weather.
6 more weeks of winter there will be!
The tradition, which takes place in a small town in western Pennsylvania at dawn on the same day every year, has been happening since 1887. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to Channel Studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Enyimba International of Aba have moved top of the Nigeria Professional Football League for the first time this season. Now, the 8-time Nigeria League champions beat Nasarawa United 2-1 at the Lafayette City Stadium to record their 6th win of the season in 8 games. Imama Mapakabo's Abia Warriors recorded their first win of the season in 8 games, thrashing visiting Sunshine Stars of Akure 4-1. Goals from Gabriel Jesus and Raheem Sterling kept Manchester City at the top of the English Premier League and gave them their 13th consecutive win. They now lead Manchester United by 3 points with a superior goal difference and a game in hand. Now, Pep Guardiola's side had seen rivals Manchester United demolish Southampton 9-0 on Tuesday to draw level on points, but City collected their now customary victory over the Clarets. Leicester strengthened their position in the top 4 with a 2-0 victory over Fulham, whose survival hopes suffered a further blow at Craven Cottage, and Everton beat Leeds 2-1. Olympic officials have unveiled the first of many COVID-19 rules for the Tokyo Games, starting with banning singing and chanting during events and mandating event participants to wear masks at all times except when eating and sleeping. Those who break these rules may be faced with removal from the Games or other punishments. And that sports news is back to you, Marachi.
Thank you, Ayotunde. And the main news again. The Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund, a government agency, today flouted President Buhari's COVID-19 safety law as it conducted promotion examination for its staff in a crowded center. The FCT task force, however, disrupted the session and promised to bring the violators to justice. And another batch of 425 stranded Nigerians returned to the country from Saudi Arabia today and were received at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport. That is the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night and stay safe.